So the first thing I want to do is I want to share with you a video from one of our members. And we're, by the way, if you're not familiar with the LBMA, we are the Location-Based Marketing Association. We're a not-for-profit industry trade group that represents a number of different segments of the industry, which I'll get into in a second. But before I do that, you know, it's not just about location, it's not just about where people are. It's equally important, in our opinion, to understand who they are, and so to try and derive some context around you know, what they're doing before you try to engage somebody. And there was a comment yesterday on one of the panels about this, you know, how the payments industry has tended to refer to, you know, their customers as users as opposed to customers. And I thought that was rather interesting statement by the gentleman on the panel yesterday. And so knowing where your customer is and who they are, you know, gives you a lot of context in kind of thinking about how to approach them. So one of our members is Adobe, and they put together this great video on the importance of knowing who your customer is. So I thought I'd share it with you to kick things off.
Peter, come take a look at this.
Look at this.
The numbers, they keep getting bigger and bigger.
The clicks are off the charts.
Yeah.
Yoshi, it's Walter. We're back.
Get there!
I need more trees, I'll get you more trees.
Hey, take a look at Woodfall.
Everything you got to put on right now.
Really loves that thing.
So hopefully you're awake now, and the importance of knowing not just where the customer is, but who they are before we, you know, approach them, before we try to engage them and create a relationship with them is really, really important. As I said, I represent the Location-Based Marketing Association. We're a not-for-profit industry trade group. We're headquartered out of Toronto. We have offices or chapters in all the cities you see at the bottom of the screen, about 1,100 member companies that we represent. And when we talk about location-based marketing, our definition of that, I think, is maybe broader than you might think. So we define that term simply as the intersection of people, places, and media. And by that we mean all media, not just mobile. Television, radio, billboards, everything. And I'll try to sort of share with you how we look at that in a few seconds. The diversity of our member base, just a quick splash of some of the companies that belong, are members of the association. So you see a lot of retail brands, you see government agencies like NASA, because obviously they're putting satellites into space that help us understand GPS and location. You see television networks like CNN, and out-of-home companies and payments companies like PayPal and Square and folks like that all belong to the LBMA. This is a diagram that we use all over the place to kind of define the ecosystem from our perspective when we talk about location marketing. So the inner ring, that orange ring, are the predominant technologies in play today for figuring out where a target user, customer, however you want to define the audience that you're trying to reach is. And so in North America, about just under 80% of geo-targeting, if you will, happens on the GPS that exists in your smartphone. In most other markets around the world, it's a much lower number. But there are other ways to do geo-positioning. We can turn to things like beacons or Wi-Fi when we get into indoor spaces where GPS may be difficult to penetrate walls or things like that. Or we can go to the carrier networks, and we can use their cell towers to determine position of where somebody is. And so we use this information to figure out where our target audience is, the geo-acquisition piece, if you will. And then we ask the question in the next ring, which is what media as a marketer is available to me in that particular location. So is there a billboard near that person right now? You know, what media is in front of them I can use to influence them with my advertising or with my marketing or with my consumption message, whatever that may be. And then the green ring is kind of the one where we see thousands of startups around the world that all have something to do with location. So whether that be a mapping company or a couponing company, or an analytics play around location, or somebody doing check-ins on like a platform like Foursquare or Yelp or something like that. In fact, about 85% of all the data we're generating on the planet right now has a geo or location element to it. In simplest terms, for example, when you take a photo on your smartphone, that photo is not just being date and time stamped, it also has latitude and longitude, so that when you pull it in to iPhoto, you can group your photos by place, right? Because it has location data. And so it's something that's becoming, available in pretty much everything that we do. Another way that we like to look at location at the LBMA is in what I'm calling here the three-layer location cake. And this is in particularly true for the retail community, and that's probably our biggest vertical or sector. So if we start at the bottom, the way we want retailers and we want brands to think about how you invest and how you, apply location isn't just about what you do in the store. There's actually a lot more to it. So if we start with this outer number one, what I call driving traffic, there are a set of location technologies that are really focused on how do we actually get people to the store in the first place, right? Through push messaging platforms, through geo-targeted advertising on various app networks, through a number of different methods, or even location in the social sphere. So Twitter, for example, or Facebook, or things like that, have very robust location offerings. You can do ad retargeting in an online framework that affects an offline or physical engagement at a store. Right? So it's about how do we get them there in the first place, because we can't transact with them in many cases unless they're physically there. Once they're there, then we turn to, typically in our world, we turn to the world of indoor positioning and indoor location, which is a fairly wide field encompassing things like Wi-Fi, beacons, magnetic positioning, LTE direct. There's a number of ways to figure out exactly where somebody is in the building right now and then be able to engage them. Those types of technologies are typically focused on increasing basket size, or maybe understanding traffic flow patterns or dwell time, the movements of people within an environment. But it doesn't stop there. Then we move to the third layer, which is the transactional layer, right? And this is, we need to actually close the sale. And that's where things like NFC are becoming really important to the equation. That's why we have things like Apple Pay, and that's where the loyalty part of the equation comes into the discussion as well, because if we don't have access to the transactional data and we don't have access to the loyalty data, we can't actually go back to the beginning and affect the ad targeting that's happening on the outside that gets people to the commercial environment we want them in the first place. So that's how we think about location across all of it. Another way to think about it is what we call looking at location as the cookie, or for the physical world. And so here's like a diagram that we use to kind of look at the day in the life of an average consumer. We wake up in the morning, we're in our bed, and before we even get out of bed, what's the first thing we do? We grab the phone or the tablet on the night table beside us, right? So we're already in a location, we're in our home, we're engaged with a device to a form of media in that particular place. So there's already an opportunity for brands and for people to engage with us, even in that environment. We get ready for work, we hop into the car, maybe we're now driving to the office. Our location has changed, we're now moving, we're on the highway or wherever we are, and so has the device and the media type. So maybe we're listening to radio, maybe we're engaged with content on the navigation screen in our car. So the mechanism for a marketer or for an advertiser to influence you has changed, as has the location. We get to the office, now we're on our laptop or our desktop. Middle of the afternoon, we go across the street to Starbucks to grab a coffee. Now there's digital menu boards and screens in that environment while we're there that have the ability to influence us. Right? And maybe when we get home, we're still watching television. So what I'm getting at, across all of that, as we look at the consumer movement throughout the day, the only thing that we can track is location. It's the only piece of data that actually spans across all the media types and devices. And that begs the question also of, a lot of the discussion today is about the screen. And I want to suggest to you, it's not just the screen that exists in your pocket, but in fact, all of these things are screens that marketers and people that we work with are very focused on understanding how we engage people. And in all of these environments, there's an opportunity for a conversation to happen. Right? And so as folks in that industry, you need to think about how are we injecting a payments thought or a commerce transaction into what's happening, on that vending machine, or what's happening in that navigation system on the car, or what's happening on that watch, or what's happening on that menu board. And it's not just about the screen, but how we connect the screen to what I call a sensor-driven world. So the smartphone that you have in your pocket has anywhere between 14 and 19 sensors in it, right? So yes, it has a GPS that can tell us the location of where that phone is right now, but it also has a gyroscope that can tell us whether the device is moving at the moment. It has a compass that can tell us the direction it's going. It has an accelerometer that can tell me how fast that you're moving right now, so I can determine simply from a sensor ping whether or not you're driving or you're walking or you're riding a bicycle. And it has light sensitivity readings, so I can tell whether that thing is in your pocket, or it's sitting on a table, or it's in a dark room and it's been sitting still for the last 16 hours, which probably tells me you're sleeping. So sending you a push message while you're sleeping doesn't make sense, right? And that's the problem that we're in right now with how location and push messaging and the advertising world is engaging with consumers. We're overwhelming them with engagement because we don't quite know what's the right time and contextually whether it's appropriate to talk to them right now. So I'm going to share with you a couple of examples of some of the work we've done with some of our member companies that I think, hopefully you'll find interesting in different ways that we can engage. So one of those areas that we do a lot of work in is the area of augmented reality. And this is the idea that we use the camera in your smartphone to actually create a visual experience that's not really physically there, but through the camera lens you can see something projected, if you will. And commerce has a big role, in my opinion, to play in this. And here's a good example of what we've done with a company in Toronto where I'm based.
Wow, that is a beautiful blazer. Great choice. I think you'll like some pieces from our new collection inside. Here, scan this coupon and you'll get 30% off your purchase if you come in now. Or you can shop online later and you'll still get 20% off. I'm sure you'll find something you like inside. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Love that outfit.
So we've simply reinvented the storefront window display using holographic projection technology, using beacons to determine when people are nearby, using push messaging technology, using a whole bunch of different layers of that type of experience. And really it is about experience. I mentioned earlier in the idea of this cookie, that the car is one of these mechanisms or one of the screens. We're doing a lot of work in this space right now as an industry association. So on the left, what you see there is a partnership we put together between Harman, AHA Radio, streaming radio service that's available in some vehicles, and Groupon. So while you're driving, and we know it's lunchtime, and we know that you're near the Quiznos right now, we're going to push an offer for Quiznos right into the navigation system of the vehicle, right? And you're tapping on the screen and basically redeeming that offer right there. That is the screen, right? So it's not just about what's happening on the mobile device in your pocket. It's also about how do we take the brand to where the consumer is. It's not always about making sure that they come to us or to our store, but understanding that wherever the consumer is in that location cookie framework I described, whether they're at home or they're in their car or they're in the restaurant or they're somewhere else, being able to engage with them in that brand environment is really important. So we're seeing things like digital shoppable walls. Here you have Tesco at Gatwick Airport in the UK, where you've been away for 2 weeks on your holiday, you come home, the first thing you gotta do is buy groceries, right? So let's bring the grocery store to the airport. And let's allow people through the app to actually purchase their groceries, and by the time they get home, have those groceries be delivered, right? That's the world that we're living in. Is location is omnipresent in that context in terms of understanding where people are. And it's also about how we bridge the gaps in relationships between, companies and between brands that may, have not existed before, and to understand the relationships that our consumers, our target audience, already have. So we know Netflix, for example, is a growing phenomenon, right? And for example, myself, I travel every week. I'm always in a hotel. I watch a lot of Netflix, so wouldn't it be great if when I get into my hotel room, I can log into my own Netflix account on the hotel TV system and watch stuff that I'm already watching, right? That's what Marriott and Netflix are doing, right? And and if you don't have a Netflix account, you can buy one while you're there. So we're creating that opportunity to, create a transaction in your hotel room between, these types of entities. It's also about this concept of what I call same day anywhere. So the data today says the consumer that we're all targeting is a consumer that is impatient, right? They want whatever they want it right now. And so that's why things like, being able to order your groceries from the airport and get home is a convenience to people. That's why Amazon is looking at things like drone delivery. That's why we have Google, with buffer boxes where you can order stuff online and pick them up at your local, convenience store in a storage locker. That's why we have things like, these Amazon Dash buttons at the bottom. I don't know, anybody seen these Amazon Dash buttons, these little branded buttons? They're pretty cool, right? So what is it? It's a little button that's an Internet of Things connected device that, let's say the Tide one, for example, you stick it right by your washing machine, and when you run out of Tide, you just tap this button and it automatically connects to your Amazon account and orders you a box of Tide, right? So we're creating commerce right at the washing machine, right? That is the location in this context, right? It's wherever the consumer is and wherever it makes sense to engage them. And the last thing I want to share with you, it's about how we tie it all together. So when I said that, it's about all media and not just mobile, I mean it. It's all media. And so the best example I can give you is this project that we did earlier this year in the UK with a charity. And it involves a lot of different technologies coming together, as you'll see in a second. Here we go. So there's a lot going on there, right? There's facial recognition technology being used to determine who's actually standing there and project their image onto the screen. There's beacons being used to measure how many people are near that screen right now. There's geo-targeted SMS through the Weave payments platform in the UK that's being used to drive the donation of people who are in proximity to that screen to complete the transaction, if you will. And it's all being tied together, right? That's how we have to think about the importance of location. It's where is the customer that we're trying to reach right now, and how do we engage them? So that's what I wanted to share with you this morning, is to remember that a place is wherever you are right now. Location is this cookie for the physical world. And that's not just about mobile, but how we integrate, across all these different mediums. So thanks for your time.